Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Creating Consciousness podcast. I'm your host, Lexi. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. It is amazing here in Colorado Springs. It has been overcast and very autumnal. It's pretty much the very first day of fall here, even though we still have a couple of days. It's nice and cool, crisp. We've got our pumpkin candle, we've got our pumpkin coffee. Got all the pumpkin things. So cozy up. Hope you are enjoying your day. And let's get into our first topic for our second episode. So welcome back. Thank you for joining me. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit more about some breath work that I mentioned during yesterday's podcast. I received some feedback from a couple of individuals that were very interested in hearing some more information about breathwork specifically and different things that you can use it for, kind of what it is, all of that kind of good stuff. So that is what we are going to be talking about for today. So I hope you'll join me and enjoy. All right, everybody. So breathwork, what is it? What do we know? What don't we know? We're not really sure. But what I can tell you is what breathwork means to me, what I have read about it, what the science says, and then other people's perspectives that I've gathered along my travels and along my journey. So what we know is that breathwork is pretty powerful. If you are somebody that regularly works with your breath, if you have a regular breathwork routine, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Pretty much anybody can experience the healing power of breath. So, as like we did yesterday with our first podcast, I want us all to close our eyes. Hopefully you're in a safe space to do so. Please don't do this if you're driving. But close your eyes with me. And we're going to take some breaths. So breathe in and out. One more. Last one. So right there, we all enjoyed a little bit of breath work. So if you've never done breath work before, if that's the very first experience that you're having, I hope that you feel a little bit lighter. Hope you feel a little bit calmer. The amazing thing about our breath is that when we as human beings breathe very deeply, when we regulate our breath, we have the power and ability to regulate our nervous system, as we talked about yesterday. We also, when we use our breath in that manner, in a controlled, steady state, scientifically, we also unlock a part of our bodies called the parasympathetic nervous system. So essentially what that means, as everybody knows, hopefully all pieces and parts of our body are connected. Very much the same as unity consciousness, and as we are all connected to all parts and all aspects of this great universe, our body is the same. I kind of like to think of it as a homogeneous agreement between our energetic physical bodies, our souls, and the consciousness of the universe. So anytime that we are feeling a little bit not ourselves, a little bit discombobulated, disjointed, anytime that you're feeling anxious, scared, nervous, just not yourself, try and take a breath. Notice how even just 3 long, slow, steady breaths really has the power and ability to bring you right back to yourself, right back to your center. So a regular practice can look like very, very easy and plain. 5 minutes in the morning when you wake up, instead of rolling over and reaching for your phone, which we all do. I am no stranger to that either. But instead of doing that first thing in the morning, put your hand on your heart, put your other hand on your belly, and just breathe. And do it at least for a count of 5. Again, just the long, slow, controlled breaths, just like we just did at the beginning of this episode. Just 5. That's it. It'll take you maybe 2 to 3 minutes. And then start your day. And see what a major difference that shift does. Try that for 30 days. Challenge yourself. See what happens. Do you find that you end up calmer throughout the day? Someone cuts you off in traffic and you don't really react the same way that you do. I know that happens for me. Somebody cuts you in line at Starbucks or Dutch Bros, in my case. Do you get mad? You just brush it off? Somebody slights you in some way throughout your day. How do you react? Do you get all bent out of shape and you start huffing right away? Are you sensing a pattern and theme? Just like we talked about yesterday, when we are under pressure and we're under stress, what is your breath doing? What happens in those moments where you feel out of control, out of sync? The easiest and best way to come back into a feeling of synchronicity within ourselves is the breath. Just like we talked about yesterday, letting go of control is actually the most powerful thing that you can do, and it gives you the control back. It's something that I used to tell my team a lot when I was in corporate America and I was a team leader. I had been a supervisor for 3.5 years. And one of the biggest things, as I'm sure most of you guys can probably imagine, insurance, it's pretty difficult. It's a pretty difficult industry, to say the least. It's very, very stressful. I commend all of the beautiful, wonderful beings that are in the insurance industry because it is very challenging, as I'm sure you can imagine, right? Anybody that's been on the receiving end of an insurance claim, it's stressful for you. It's stressful for your adjusters too. But that said, I used to manage a couple of different teams of adjusters, and I used to tell people all the time when they'd come to me and they'd be upset because an insured was mad at them or they had gotten, screamed at on the phone for 30 minutes. I used to tell them, okay, take a deep breath. And what can you do about it? Well, I can't stop them from being mad at me over this thing. It has nothing to do with me. It's out of my control. Okay. Take another deep breath. What is in your control? The way that you react. That's it. It's that easy. The only thing that we can control in this lifetime is the way that we react to things. That's it. It's pretty simple. It's simple to say, it's a little more complex in practice. And I know that firsthand. I used to be the person that would, in those situations when I was an adjuster or when I first started as a supervisor, ooh, man, if somebody came to me and they said, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, you have to fix this, you blah, 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 whatever. Oh man, my heart rate would skyrocket. I'd feel my heart in my throat, in my chest. I'd be freaking out. The amount of times that I cried at my desk, too many to count. But then I started changing the way that I was thinking about things. Like I said, what can you control in those instances? You can't control the fact that somebody's going to get mad at you and that they're going to freak out. You can't control the fact that somebody's going to cut you off in traffic. You can't control the fact that somebody's going to cut you in line. But you can control the way that you react and you respond to those things. Now, all of this is not to say just be a pushover for the rest of your life. No, not at all. Absolutely not. There's a time and place to use your voice and to speak up for yourself. But more often than not, the things that we think are very important that we need to go fight for, they're usually not that big of a deal. So that said, just for me, incorporating the breath has been nothing short of life-changing. I talked yesterday about how it's been life-changing for me from a movement and exercise sense. But those of you that follow me on social media, you also know that I've been stepping out of my comfort zone a lot. I've been going a lot more places without Aaron, without my partner, without my family, without my safety net. I've been going to more local social gatherings in my town and my community by myself, not knowing anybody. And for those of you that know me, know that that is very scary for me. Very scary. Sometime in the future, I may share with you guys the reason why it is so scary for me. But for now, suffice it to say that I've had past trauma in this life that I have worked through and will continue to work through. And one of those ways that I'm working through that is by getting myself out there. And inside of my toolkit is my breath. Because I would be lying if I said every single interaction that I have now, every time that I put myself out there, it's easy. I have no problems. There's no issues. None whatsoever. That's maybe not necessarily the case. But I have my breath. So anytime that I start feeling anxious, I start getting a little jumpy, a little excited, my nerves start going, my heart starts racing, my breath gets really shallow. I come back to the breath. The other ways that our breath can help us is just in different everyday practices in our life. As we said, we can talk about anxiety, we can talk about anger, talk about stress. It's the same idea that we talked about yesterday with yoga, running, other sports, movement, moving our bodies. One of the other things that it helps a lot with too is pain. I'm sure most of us at some point in our lives have stubbed a toe, right? What's the first thing that we do? Take a real sharp inhale. And a lot of times, if we're in a lot of pain, get those real short, shallow breaths. I mentioned yesterday that I scraped the back of my heel. So after a couple of choice words, thrown out for my sheer stupidity in the moment, I just sat and I breathed. I literally sat down on the step and I was holding my heel and I was just breathing because I knew in that moment, no matter how bad my heel hurt, the thing that was going to make it feel better right away, almost immediately, was breathing. When we breathe, obviously, we know that we're intaking oxygen into our bodies. I don't have to tell everybody what the intake of oxygen does to our cells and to our bodies, but that's, I think, truly the reason why the breath is so important in any of these aspects, in any of these situations that we find ourselves in. The other thing, too, anybody that has had a massage and it's been maybe more painful than enjoyable. We all know sometimes those medical sports massages, they can be a little brutal. But in those moments, what do? Do you tense up or do you breathe? If you breathe and you soften, you open and relax, those moments turn into fleeting seconds. The relaxation, the energetic exchange of that moment becomes the focus instead of the pain that you're feeling. If anybody has tattoos, I have 3. I also have a bunch of piercings too. But if you guys have tattoos or piercings, you guys know too, what's the one thing that your artist is probably going to tell you? Breathe. So all of these different ways in which we can utilize this very specific, very simple tool in a day-to-day basis. One of the other things too that we can try to do if we're not used to, like I mentioned in the morning, breathing, getting used to rolling over and taking some deep breaths instead of initially reaching for our phone. Something else too is if you live with a partner or if you interact with other people on a daily basis and somebody makes you mad, start breathing. I challenge all of you between now and next week, just try these things. Try and implement them. See how much it changes your life just on a very short span of time. When we find ourselves amped up with our emotions, it can be really hard to focus on your breath. I know that. I'm no stranger to that at all whatsoever. Sometimes, I'll be irritated about somebody cutting me off in traffic or maybe not being understood when I'm trying to make a point. In those instances where I know ordinarily I had the tendency to freeze and lash out and be mad and irritated and say, well, it's your fault for not listening to me. It's this, it's that, blaming other things. Coming back to what can I control in this moment? How I react and what my breathing is like. And that's it. So, with that, I want to leave us with a short breath practice you guys can try in the morning in addition to the 5 breaths if you want. Anytime that you find yourself in a situation that you know that you have anxiety. Oh, totally forgot too. One of the major things that it can help with is public speaking. It's actually how I used to use breath work a lot before I really started on this journey on my own was when I was in corporate. I used to be terrified of public speaking. I used to be terrified of being in a room with people that were much older than me, and I was oftentimes the youngest person in the room, and I knew it, and I thought everybody else knew that too, so it would send me into almost a crippling anxiety attack, almost. But I used to use breath when I was public speaking too. So, one very quick breathwork practice that you can try in any of these scenarios. If you're experiencing anxiety, nervousness, anger, anything, feeling out of body, you're feeling not yourself, try some 4-7-8 breathing. We'll try that right now. And I want you all to try this along with me if you can, again, safely. Please try it with me. It's called 4-7-8 breathing. So what we do is we're going to inhale for 4 counts, hold the breath for 7 counts, and then exhale for 8 counts. So we'll just do 2 or 3 together just to get a feel for it. But you can do this before any type of situation that you have, as you're in the middle of it, or afterwards to try and calm yourself down as well. And it works. It works like a charm. So, all right, get comfortable, shake out your limbs, shake it out, get ready. All right, remember, in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. All right, let's get started. So in, hold, and out for 8. Again. And last one. And come back to normal breathing. So notice how you felt before you started that. Again, that was only 3. You can do as many as you want. You can do it for a couple of minutes. You can do it just until you feel better. You can just do it for 3 or 4 rounds like we just did. Notice how you feel. Do you have tingling in your fingers and your toes? Do you feel like your chest is more open and expanded? How are your emotions? How's your energy level? It's really easy, really simple, but it can change your life. Thank you, everybody, for joining me on today's podcast. I so appreciate all of you for being here. Thank you for the support, for the feedback. As we mentioned yesterday, please include some voice notes for me as questions inside of the Anchor platform. If you listen on Anchor, if you're listening on Spotify, you are more than welcome to reach out via our social media links with any questions, thoughts, comments, suggestions, or anything that you want me to talk about in future episodes. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time for yourself. I hope this was helpful. Namaste. Thank you for joining me on this episode. I hope you enjoyed. You can find me on Instagram. My profile name is Montoya Lex. It's MontoyaLex. That's my Instagram profile. And you can also send me any comments, feedback, suggestions, questions, or topics that you would like me to cover at creatingconsciousnessllc@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have a wonderful rest of your day.